Let's talk about how capitalism, of course, is unsustainable, predatory, and you say it's a contradiction into itself, but you also say it's not the source of the problem, it's merely a symptom. Elaborate on why.
You usually get labeled really rapidly when you start to criticize capitalism, given the decades of propaganda and the kind of educational bias you have in traditional educational circles, high schools in America and the West. And it's assumed that if you're not for capitalism, which they block out as a particular socioeconomic ideology, again, in this truncated framing, they don't look at the system reality of how it emerged. They assume you're either a Marxist or a communist. These things are instantly go into people's minds. The first thing to point out is that it's completely narrow to even decide that type of fact, because capitalism is a symptom of a larger, deeper problem that has happened in our socioeconomic understanding, which goes back, in my view, at least in a formalized sense, to a man named Thomas Malthus, who was hired by the British East India Company to do the first global survey of resources. And basically, Malthus said that humans multiply exponentially while resources are acquired or regenerate geometrically. So in this ethic, he said there are always going to be more people than there are resources. They're always going to be poor, and there are always going to be people that are basically going to have to die for the benefit of the rest of the world. You couple that in with about a century and a half later, when Darwin comes around, writes a very profound book about basic evolution. It was quickly bastardized by the more militant interests in society. It said, oh, this proves everything that we thought all along. Social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. We live in a Malthusian society. We now have social Darwinism that says only the strong survive. Boom, you have the entire basic ethic of war instilled right into the model. And you have the entire basic ethic of capitalism instilled right into the value system of the social architecture that says there's not enough to go around, therefore some will have to compete. Well, everyone will have to compete, and some are going to lose tremendously, and some are going to win tremendously, and it's all natural. Let's just let it happen. And that's clearly the state today with the 100 billionaires. The 100 billionaires right now that can resolve global extreme poverty 4 times over, and the 3,000 other billionaires that have now emerged. And we're going to see that number increase through time, with 43% up to 46% based on some estimates of the wealth of the world owned by 1%. This is considered a virtue in the deep core ethic, and which is also deeply and atrociously offensive and wrong. Now, the final thing I'll add is this contradiction that's happened throughout the evolution of capitalism itself. Capitalism defends itself as being a scarcity-focused system, right? It says, well, but there's scarcity. We have to, again, it comes to this Malthusian premise that there's not enough to go around. Even some people distort this to say there's infinite wants, that human beings, given their own free interest, would want everything, which is another completely ludicrous social projection. So it defends scarcity as its reasoning, but then what does it do? It goes out and promotes infinite consumption, because consumption is what drives the entire thing. Consumption is what keeps the money moving between all the major actors. If you have less consumption, it's like the gas pedal on a car. If you have less consumption, you have more unemployment. You have reduced growth. So it's completely schizophrenic. Do you see my point?
Yes.
It's insane.
That's amazing.